Hi everyone, my name is Mohamed Sidahmed. I'm very pleased to be part of the Data Innovation Summit today. My talk today is titled Shell AI Journey Towards Energy Futures. I'm very pleased to introduce you some of the work that has been done over the last few years. This is as part of the Shell AI strategy and how we actually helping the company to shape the future. Just a little bit of a cautionary note. This is a warning just to give you a little bit of perspective that everything I'm going to be talking about today has some future perspective, and therefore you should not make any concrete decisions based on the presentation content that we're going to go through today. So just to put things in perspective, the world needs more and cleaner energy, and that's something we all recognize over the last few months with the very kind of unusual situation we're going through the pandemic. We recognize the importance of having access to clean energy for the global world to be connected and being part of this global movement that would create stability, would generate more growth in the future. And this is what we call the dual challenge. How do we provide more kind of a cleaner energy that would achieve the carbon neutral initiative that's been set forward by, for example, Paris Climate Initiative, while at the same time enabling a growing population around the globe to have access to cleaner energy. So a lot of things have changed over the past few years, and we're still in the midst of this kind of transition across many different sectors of the economic activities. If you think about how our global economies are connected today, this is fully demonstrated that a fundamental change in way we access the global resources, that's in terms of transporting power, generating and building more of industrial capacity to enable this kind of growth and revolution and development, require us to rethink our existing business model and the fundamental key technology enablers that would provide this. And this is a very key pillar of the whole Shell strategy to enable all these future plans and existing core business models through digitalization in general and artificial intelligence in particular. So how is that happening? How do we respond to this sense of urgency while at the same time recognizing there is some sort of a realism has to be taken into consideration? We cannot say in a matter of days, weeks, or months, we will achieve that whole transition to become more of an energy independent global, and at the same time relying on these new technologies and new innovations by collaborating across industries, across different segments. And that's becoming very eminent. If you look today around us, we're becoming more of a digital economy, regardless of what part of business you're in, whether you're in healthcare, in financial sectors, or energy business. We're all becoming part of this global digital society that's very connected, and we rely more and more on each other to fuel in this generation of ideas, application for these AI techniques across a very broad spectrum. So think about what happened really in the last decade. And this slide, most of you have seen this being presented multiple times. But this is a very good representation to reflect upon and just take a moment to think about what happened in just a decade in terms of cost, how we measure now all the stimuli around us, whether this is geospatial sensors acquisition, how do we measure the greenhouse gas emissions, how do we measure the movement, the tracking of our exercises, our sleeping patterns, and so forth. So the cost of these sensors is dropping significantly. At the same time, the cost of processing power is also diminishing by 50-fold. So the cost barrier here, what I'm trying to share with you is an appreciation that cost has been a barrier for an extended period of time. But because of these breakthrough in innovation, we are now able to access, store, process more capacity of our data generation across the globe in a more faster, cheaper fashion. So think about the cost of a bandwidth. For those who remember back in the days, relying on a dial-up modem is something that's really going through a needle eye to get through emails, very basic browsing and so forth. Nowadays, we're running these virtual conferences completely relying on an expanded bandwidth with a very reliable quality of service. The amount of data between 2010 and 2015 has increased by ninefold. So this is a really dramatic increase in the amount of volume of the data that's being generated. And from 2015 to 2020, that actually exponentially growth by 40 folds. This is 40 times, and we just 90% of all the data that was being created in the last 2 years. So the question is, how do we leverage this growth of data to enable all the AI applications that we intend to build on top of it? So how is this being translated? And I think talking about the data as a key ingredient, as an asset, is a fundamental shift in terms of how organizations think about capitalizing on the amount of data that they have. If you are in the retail business, you treat the relationship with the customer not only as a customer relationship management through channels of communication and interaction, but it's also more than building a holistic intimacy with the customers to understand what is their current and future needs might be, and then adapting your products, your services according to that. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to leave you with here is digitalization means different thing to different people, but Shell have taken a very fundamental approach to that by focusing on digital technologies that can help existing business challenges. And that's been a very fundamental challenge to scale and replicate. How do you move from an ideation very quickly to prove that into some sort of a small scale proof of concept or some sort of a field trial? But that should not actually stop there. The whole idea is we need to be able to replicate and scale up these technologies across the large areas of the business. And this is something that's not new. This is not a goal by itself. And the question here is, how do you transform the entire company and build this as part of the DNA of the corporate strategy? So what areas are we working on nowadays? I want to have a little bit of an end-to-end perspective of where these data acquisitions, how these AI applications are playing a significant and outstanding role in day-to-day operations and future strategic decisions at all levels of decision-making across the organization. So if you look from left to right, exploration and development is one of the core pillars of energy integrated companies, where we actually look into ways to inspect, monitor, and do some of the large scale visualization, optimization type of work. And this is very crucial because on a day-to-day activity, looking into how much volume a human expert can process on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or an annual basis is not a sustainable business model to think that now we have people with 10, 15, 20, or 30 years of experience who can handle the vast majority and variety of different type of acquisition of data that's coming from the subsurface, coming from the networks, coming from the retail business, the midstream, the new energies, and so forth. So that's one of the primary motivation behind making sure that across the whole value chain, we focus on the value delivery via AI. And by that mean, the technology development is not a goal by itself. We measure the value by how much impact, whether this is reducing cost, improving efficiency, or accelerating value for the actual business, whether this has happened to be part of the transportation, the functions, or the production and the manufacturing. I want to get your attention for a very specific area really become overlooked on our type of work in the recent future. As many of you have been following in the news, how the whole energy transition led by companies like Shell is completely rewriting the playbook for how the energy industry should transition to building this kind of channels with the customer, with the society, with the bigger ecosystem that we work with. This is a very simplistic framework that actually take us from how we approach things in a strategic way while looking into these key data enablers that allow us to progress and excel the digitalization strategy and the AI product roadmap we set for ourselves. This is what we call from left to right. These are the different data sources, and going back actually make any significant progress on any business application without having investment at key initiative and key fundamental investments on the variety of the data sources. So data has been treated, as I mentioned before, as a significant asset, whether this is internally acquired by the company or this is part of acquired by third-party vendor, or it's actually related to the day-to-day operations that's going throughout the life cycle of a workflow. But beyond that, there's a huge investment in terms of infrastructure, and by that I mean building platform. We have a very kind of full end-to-end platform we call the shell.ai platform that enable us to take things from ideation, from research and development concepts, all the way to deployment to our end customers, and being able to generate insights and provide some tangible outcomes. But that said, this is the ambitious plan that built on a systematic incremental approach moving forward into the future. But you cannot wait for an extended period of time to have this complete platform being built and complete kind of scalable across a very large organization with a footprint around the globe. So that's why we introduce what we call it the disruptive accelerators. These are more of a localized experimentation in certain assets in certain regions that can benefit from a very specialized deployment that can bring very quick value to the business. So what is our focus and how AI-based solutions? We early on, we recognize that the type of customization deployments vary from one business to business. And this is why we kind of bucketized some of the enabling technologies into some of the new business models. For the existing businesses, we typically we have a very clear path to redesign, reuse some of the existing technologies we built. So think about, for example, optimization solution based on deep neural network framework that can be applied for areas related to optimizing production, all the way to optimizing wind farms, to optimizing our supply chain and logistics. These are some have some sort of a commonality at the foundational algorithmic development perspective, but it has also some kind of uniqueness in terms of how the end user, the decision maker, is going to rely on the AI solution to reach that goal and that perspectives. At the same time, there are new solutions that it is specifically designed and built from the ground up for new business developments who are kind of new being introduced to digitalization. And that actually goes hand in hand as we start laying out the blueprint for these new business models. So I want to leave you with very quick overview of some of the applications that we have successfully deployed and built from the ground up in terms of AI application. So safety and environment, achieving goal zero of no harm to individuals, to the environment, or to the society around us has been one of the fundamental areas that AI today has been matured significantly and being able to reduce any areas of harm and take people from harm's away. In terms of vision, computer vision is one of our flagship area that we deploy across different parts of application, whether this is on the exploration side or in the subsea modeling. So this is part of the reservoir modeling, enhancement of the 3D geospatial models and geological models. At the same time, if you look at how our engineering and construction work, this is literally creating some sort of a digital twin that can be able to fully orchestrate how the design, the exceptions, the anomalies that likely to happen throughout the life cycle of a plant will deliver. In terms of well delivery, we have a full automated, what we call the geodesic, or similar to autonomous drilling. This is the same algorithm that's currently being used for self-driving cars to be able to provide that real-time guidance for people who might be working miles away or thousands of kilometers across the globe. In terms of our different parts of the downstream business, the chemicals and the new energies, you kind of very quickly notice there is some sort of a synergy of how the underlying technologies enabled by AI have a significant role played in these areas. So this is one of the quickest example. I want you to leave you with an appreciation of how the real-time streaming in terms of application for the predictive maintenance have transformed things from days and weeks into seconds and minutes, that actually transitioned or translated into more of reduced inventory cost, reducing capital expenditures, and also streamline the work processes and the workflows we designed on for running these plants. I want to leave you with a last appreciation for what the future is planned for our, how do we see the climbing the open ladder of AI across different parts of the industry and different domain areas is going to shape our capabilities and help us close the gap of adoption in these difficult times. So historically, AI has been very accurate in terms of surveillance and inspection areas. We took that as a step forward by applying AI as part of the robotics control systems for maintenance and being able to provide for example, the remote vehicles that do inspection on the subsea or in a very difficult harm areas like petrochemical plants, refineries, and so forth. But as we get more into the volume of the data that's being acquired, we need to start thinking more clever way about how to enable and provide the continuous learning approach, whether this happen through transfer learnings or happen through maybe drawing some of the human interjections of how these intelligent frameworks and intelligent algorithms can adapt to the constraints in the physical environment and the physical application area that we typically work on. Transition us into adopting this new mindset. So I would leave you with some reflective pointers. I'm hoping this would stimulate the discussion and the conversation as we shape this journey towards creating disruptors and acknowledging the fact that disruptors being disrupted is a fact of life. So this is not a change in technology alone. What I want to leave you with is digitalization can be a culture, and it's a mindset for the corporations to get on board in that. With this, I would like to thank you again, and I wish you a very interesting and insightful participation throughout the conference, the virtual conference. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.